Okay, we are back with more perimeter. So if you watched our perimeter video on whole numbers, same kind of concept. Remember, the reason that I write perimeter this way is because the word rim is capitalized, and that helps me remember that I'm going to measure the outside of the shape. So when you're doing perimeter, you're going to measure the outside of the shape, and we're going to add up the numbers of the shape's sides. So, for example, for this one, I have a square here, and we're going to take this number, and I want to make sure that I'm labeling the other sides of this square. So this is 6 61/100ths, and this side is 5 6/10ths. I want to make sure I label both of those because I want to make sure that I don't forget those other two sides, because if I only add up these two sides, then unfortunately, I only have half the perimeter. So I want to make sure that I'm adding them all up. Now, there are two strategies to do this. You could do your 6 16/100ths and add them both together. And I would get 12, 3, 12. So that would be those two sides together. And then I could add 5 6/10ths both times and get 11 2/10ths. Then I have a third step here. I need to take 12 32/100ths plus 11 2/10ths. Remember, I have to line up those decimals. And I get 2, 5, so 23 52/100ths. And these are, we're going to assume these are inches. So that's one strategy. Okay, so strategy number one, I could do it that way. Strategy number two, I could take 6 16/100ths plus 5 6/10ths. Now remember, again, we're going to line up those decimals. So 6, 7, and 11. So 11 67/100ths. Now, what I need to do next is that's only two sides. I'm going to add that to itself, or you could technically multiply it by 2. So 11 76/100ths plus 11 76/100ths. So 2, regroup my 1, 15. Oop, don't forget that decimal. So I get the same answer here. So it's 23 52/100ths. Same answer. It really depends on which approach you want to do. A lot of people find that this step, it just feels like less steps to do if you add the two different sides in a square, or I'm sorry, a rectangle. Did I say a square earlier? Oh my goodness, this is a rectangle. The sides are different. So with this rectangle, it makes it easier to add the two sides that are not equal and then add that to itself. So let's try another one. This is a right angle triangle. And if you notice, we have A, B, and C labeled, and then they have A, B, and C down here. So that's giving us, telling us that A is this A, so it means this side is equal to 8.6 or 8 6/10ths yards. This B is 5 2/10ths yards, and this C side is 10 5/100ths. So with this, we're just going to stack them up. So 8 6/10ths, 5 2/10ths, and then 10 5/100ths. Oh my goodness, 5/100ths. Then we add them up. We're going to remember we lined up our decimals. I'm going to add the zeros in the other places so that I have placeholders there. So 5, 8, 8 plus 5 is 13. Regroup. 23 85/100ths, and these are yards, so I'm going to label my units here. 23 85/100ths. The next one, we have a parallelogram. So we have A, C, and H. Now, since we're finding the perimeter, we don't need the H. That's our height, so that's not our outside of our shape. So this is A. This side over here is also an A. And this side is a C. So we're kind of in the same place where we were with our rectangle. We could choose to do a couple of different things. And remember, we don't need this height. This is not the outside of the shape, so we don't need it. So one thing we could do is that strategy we used on the last one where we could take the two sides that are different and add them up. So we get 8 6/10 plus 4 81/100. When we add this up, I get 13 41/100. Now, that's only half of my sheep, so I need to add it to itself again. 13 41/100 plus 13 41/100. So I get 26 82/100 yards as my perimeter. All right, let's try a trapezoid. Now, excuse me, the way that they label this, we have A1, A2, B1, B2. Now, again, like our triangle, we don't need this middle part. This height is not anything we need. So we are ready to add these up. If you would like to add them up just two at a time, go for it. If you are more comfortable stacking them all up at the same time, that's fine too. That's totally your choice. If we choose to stack them up, we just need to remember to line up our decimals. That 3 for A2 is really 3.0, okay? And you make sure you line up that decimal. Some people with the 3.0, some people just put 3 and not put the decimal, and that doesn't really help you when you're trying to line these up and make sure that your place values are lined up. So again, I'm going to add my zeros here to keep my place values all lined up and ready. So 6 plus 4 is 10. Regroup my 1. 7 plus 2 is 9, 10, 11. Regroup my 1. Put my decimal there. All right, we got big numbers here. So 6 plus 5 is 11. 11 plus 3 is 14. 14 plus 1 is 15. 15 plus 8 is 23. So we get 23 and 10/100, and these are inches. Another way to write this would be 23 and 1/10 inches. So those are equivalent. That 0 does not change your value. All right, so this one's a square. I know I mentioned before I accidentally said square when I was talking about that rectangle, but this one is a square for sure. Now, for this, S, they're using S to label these sides, but all of these are S's, right? They're all the same because they are squares. So there are two methods to doing this. So perimeter with addition, we could do 5 plus 7, or 5.7 or 5 7/10. And we could line them all up this way. So 7 plus 7 plus 7 plus 7 is 28. We're going to regroup that too. Put my decimal here. 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5 is 20. Plus 2 is 22. So we would get 22 and 8/10 millimeters. The other way to do this, because it's a square, we could do this with multiplication. So we have 5.7 or 5 7/10 times 4, because all four sides are the same. We're going to get the same answer. So 4 times 7 is 28. Regroup my 2. 4 times 5 is 20, plus 2 is 22. And my decimal is has one place behind it in my problem, so it also goes there in my answer. So see, my answers are the same. It just depends. If you are not ready for the multiplication part of this, repeated addition works just fine. So that's another approach. And here are some other examples if you want to take a look at it, or if you want to try some other ones and pause it and then use my examples at the bottom to help you solve. All right, guys, that is finding perimeter with decimals. Thanks for listening.